As this woman entered the church to bury her son, she concealed a dark secret that even the priest was unaware of. Moments later, another man walked in and stumbled upon the situation. This man, Sasha, resided in a remote village in Russia with his elderly parents. While the rest of the world enjoyed reliable electricity and stable internet access, Sasha's community faced a different reality. They lacked a mobile signal and relied on landlines for communication. To complicate matters, Sasha was the only child of his aging parents, with no siblings to confide in, and all his childhood friends had long since moved away, leaving him feeling isolated and lonely. "Don't you care about my feelings? We can't keep living here. We need to move to a big city," he pleaded with his parents one day. However, they explained that at their age, relocating was not an option. Despite living in a village, Sasha's parents ensured he wanted for nothing, instilling strong values in him and teaching him to love God. Yet he often fantasized that if they could just leave this God-forsaken village, his life would be perfect. This conversation lingered for a long time until one morning, Sasha packed his bags, determined to leave. But after walking just a few minutes, a wave of emptiness washed over him. He felt as though he was leaving a significant part of himself behind. His parents were aging, and the thought of them passing away while he was far away in the city terrified him. Sasha trembled at the idea. He knew he could never forgive himself if that happened, so he turned around and ran as fast as he could back home. Upon arriving, he flung the door open, rushed toward them, and embraced them tightly. "We knew we were going to miss you, but if you want to leave, you have our support," his dad said. "I'm happy here. I still have many years ahead. Someday I will leave, but for now I am here," he replied. Although Sasha decided to stay, he remained very lonely and depressed. But one day, his life turned around when a family moved next to their house. They had a daughter, Alina, who was the same age as Sasha. When they arrived, Sasha wasn't home, but upon returning, he saw Alina in the front yard moving some of her family's belongings into the house. Immediately, when the two set eyes on each other, they were smitten. To Sasha, it felt like he had never seen a woman in his whole life. Alina was drop-dead gorgeous, her smile was flawless, and it looked like she had gathered all the stars in the world and kept them in her eyes. However, the two said nothing to each other that morning. Little did Sasha know, Alina had her own plans for the night. At night, Sasha went outside the house to fetch a farm instrument he had left outdoors. He was about to enter his house when he felt a hand suddenly pulling him back. Turning around, he came face to face with the damsel he had spent his whole day thinking about. "I saw you earlier today," Alina said with a smile. Sasha wasn't the chatty type, so Alina did most of the talking while he listened with rapt attention. She was so cheerful and energetic, everything about her made him fall even deeper in love. The chemistry between them was so strong that they shared a kiss that night. It was Sasha's first, and it left him shaking all over. He was glad he finally had a companion. Unfortunately, this charming lady was a friend in disguise. With each passing day, their relationship deepened, and they shared a lot of sexual delights. "We had a nice connection, but it was primarily physical," Sasha said. "It continued this way until one day, everything they shared became nothing but an unpleasant memory." That day, Alina invited Sasha over for supper. While eating, she said something that threw the poor man off balance. She told him she had been in town a few days ago for an abortion. When Sasha heard this, he was red with fury. "How could you do such a thing? Why didn't you tell me you were carrying my child?" he said, suppressing a scream. But he received an entirely different reaction from what he had envisioned. Alina burst into laughter. She chuckled so hard that she even shed a tear. "How do you know it was your child?" she said. Sasha was so surprised by her statement. It clearly meant she had other men in her life. He realized Alina wasn't the naive, loyal girl she had made him believe she was. She was a far cry from the kind of woman his mom would have wanted for him. "I can't believe you," he said, and dashed out of the house. He felt like a bomb of pain was exploding in his head. He couldn't even think straight, so he went to a nearby church to relax his nerves. Although he often did this whenever he felt sad, today's trip brought him something he needed most. Upon getting to the church, Sasha sat in a corner and meditated for the next 30 minutes. Everywhere was quiet until the cries of someone interrupted his thoughts. Looking back, he saw a woman, Vera, holding a lifeless baby in her arms while shedding tears and begging a priest. Since she was crying so loudly, he couldn't make any sense of what she was saying. Sasha moved closer to get a better understanding of the scene playing out before his eyes. When he was close enough, he learned that the woman's partner had abandoned her after she got pregnant. Sasha admired her strength and decision to go ahead with the pregnancy, regardless of her partner's painful actions. It also hurt him beyond words that she had lost the child. Unable to stand the woman's tears, Sasha approached the priest and asked what was going on. The clergyman explained that the woman wanted a Catholic funeral for her baby. However, she couldn't have such a funeral because the baby hadn't been baptized. The woman continued to plead, but the clergyman insisted his hands were tied and there was nothing he could do. Filled with pity, Sasha couldn't take his eyes off the woman and her baby. That was when he suddenly noticed something frightening. He saw the baby's hand move. Instantly, Sasha rushed to the little child and took his pulse. Even though he wasn't a doctor, he realized the child was still alive. Sasha quickly administered CPR, and soon the little boy opened his eyes and began breathing. Neither Sasha nor the priest could understand what had happened. They needed the woman to explain, and she did. Amidst tears, she said, "You see, after Vera's partner abandoned her, she was also kicked out by her parents. With no job or any source of income, she knew she couldn't take care of the child, so she had him sedated and brought him to the church so that he could be buried. When this woman was done explaining, she fell to the ground and asked for forgiveness." Sasha was so glad to hear her plans hadn't worked out. He understood the young woman's plight and didn't judge her. It even hurt him to imagine everything she had to endure, and he felt a strong and convincing urge to protect her and her child. So he held the woman's hands, carried the baby, and told her she could come home with him. When Sasha got home with the woman and her child, his parents didn't castigate him. They were glad he had good intentions for them and promised to support him. Later that evening, Sasha and the woman spent some time sharing their experiences. Both of them realized they had given out so much love and trust and had sacrificed a lot, only to have it thrown back in their faces. That night, we talked for hours and grew closer, eventually falling asleep together. Since then, we've been inseparable, Sasha shared. Despite facing numerous derogatory comments from neighbors, he and Vera chose to ignore them. Their happiness and love for each other were all that mattered. Over time, the neighbors began to accept their relationship, recognizing the deep love and respect they shared, and they ultimately chose to support them. They were pleased that Sasha had welcomed Vera into his home and embraced her child as his own. Recently, Sasha reconnected with his ex-girlfriend, but it was too late for her. She confided in him about her struggles, revealing that she now worked as a sex worker due to her inability to find a decent job. "If only I could turn back the hands of time," she lamented. "Your woman is a lucky girl," Alina said, tears welling in her eyes. Today, Sasha lives happily with Vera and their child. What do you think about Sasha's decision to take Vera in?